All right, welcome back to the Be a Man podcast. I am glad to have Larry on with me. Larry, welcome.
What's going on, brother? How are you?
I am doing all right. It's I actually had a birthday yesterday, so I'm feeling a
Hey,
little older today. So
happy birthday. How old are you?
38. So I'm 2 years away. I told somebody the other day, I'm like, they all feel the same now. Like all the 30s, and maybe it's because of the 4 kids. I don't know, but they all feel the same. But maybe 40 will feel a little different. We'll see what happens. But
If it makes you feel any better, I was actually thinking about this last night because I'm 10 years ahead of you in life. I'm 48,
yeah,
and I have immensely enjoyed my 40s more than my 30s.
yeah,
Like, my marriage got better, parenting got calmer. I'm in way better shape at 48 than I was at 38. It's literally night and day. I was
yeah.
probably 190, 200 pounds, 22% body fat, give or take. And now about 175 pounds and about hovering right around 9. I can run faster. I can work out. I can lift heavier. I don't know what it is. I think a lot of people buy into the lie of like, oh, well, I'm just old now. I
Yeah.
actually told my mother-in-law, my mother-in-law is 65 and she is a wonderful human being. I just love her to death,
Yeah.
but she's also more pessimistic. And I kind of injured my knee during a workout. I mean, I'll be fine. I just need to rehab it a little bit. And she's like, well, you are 48. You just can't do what you used to do. I'm like, don't, I don't buy, I'm sorry. I was like, I don't buy into that. I was like, I know a lot
Yeah.
of 60 and 70-year-olds who are jacked, right?
Yeah.
Who look better than
Yeah.
most 30 and 25-year-olds. I was like,
Yeah.
my opinion is we get better with time. We don't get worse. It just depends on what you do.
Yeah. I totally agree. I'm actually the lowest. I've lost about 50, 55 this year.
Dang,
And
dude.
I'm probably the lowest I've been since junior high. I would guess.
Man,
So which
congratulations.
I'm still not there yet. I've got about 20 left to go where I want to get to, but probably the strongest I've been too. I've been a little behind. I, I tore a rotator cuff, so I had to have that done. So that set me back a little, but I had to deal with that. And I
Yeah.
noticed the only difference for getting older is I have to stretch a lot more.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
before, it's like you could just get up, you could go play basketball, whatever, get up the next morning, go do it again. You didn't have to stretch, you didn't have to do anything. You were fine. Now it's like, well, let's stretch it out just a tad bit more.
I mean, listen, man, I'm a big believer in your body has to feel good and healthy.
Yeah.
Like versus like I would rather feel good and healthy and be slightly have a what's the word I'm looking for? A lower fitness level
Hmm.
than, be at a higher fitness level, but I'm in pain all the time. Like
Yeah.
that does not appeal to me whatsoever. So
Yeah.
I think there's something to be said for that. And yeah, the older you get, I mean, like mobility is key. Like if you're like I stretch every day as well. It's
Hmm.
probably one of the reasons I injured my knee because I didn't stretch the day that I did it.
Yeah.
But yeah, mobility it literally keeps the pain away. I have a 17-year-old, he's my oldest. He's already experiencing lower back pain. And I'm like, why do you have lower back pain? We went to stretch
Really?
his hamstrings. He is so tight. I'm like, dude, like you have like literally the mobility of a 90-year-old. Like you've got to stretch and he never stretches.
Yeah. Yeah. I was, that was part of the issue is there's a couple of things I can't do still. I can't squat with under a bar yet and bench press. I can't do that yet based on they had to like shave some of my labrum stuff. So it
Oh
was
yeah.
more, more detailed, but I started feeling my lower back again, start hurting. I'm like, all right, deadlift came out this week. I'm like, anytime I do a deadlift, it takes away the back pain. So I'm like, we're gonna start small, but we're gonna
Yeah.
hit it because I'm not
Yeah.
dealing with this.
What's so
I've
funny
I've
is
always been a big guy, so I've been learning how to. It's all about a mindset adjustment.
it
Like
is.
I've been doing carnivore for a while, but
Mhm.
I'd hit a plateau and I just had to get kind of past that, and it's been working for now. And I do like how I feel more uh, doing the carnivore stuff, but not that I'll do it forever. I don't think, but for now, it's helping get past those plateaus that I was hitting. So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, man.
it's fun.
It's I'll tell you, I think it's really important, and this is right along with be the man, right? Be the man.
Hmm.
And um if you're a husband, if you're a father, if you're a leader, what I've noticed is, man, like the best lessons in life are caught, not taught. And we've done fitness as a family for as long as I can remember. And dude, I will tell you, man, fitness to me is such an investment in not only ourselves, but to be that example. Because even my two older kids, like they're 17 and 15, and they are gym rats. And they're, one's a football player, one's a wrestler.
Hmm.
They both did track for a while, but like they literally, they're like, they equate with better mental and emotional health with if they're going to the gym. Like my 15-year-old will actually get cranky if he's not at football practice doing some reps, or if he's not at the gym working out. Like he's got to get that energy out. And I
Yeah.
would almost think, to be honest, it's something that's really bonded us as a family because we work out together a lot as a family. But the
Hmm.
other cool thing is, I swear, man, it's kept them out of trouble. Because if you have
I agree.
a if you have like a really positive outlet,
Hmm.
then you're going to have better mental health. Like we just got a puppy a couple weeks ago,
Yeah.
and this dog is a jackass. But if you walk him for about 30, 40 minutes and he gets those endorphins and an exercise, he's
Hmm.
awesome. He listens, he's great, he doesn't get into crap. But the days that we don't exercise him, he's a monster. And so there's a lot to say about, even animals, who need that.
Yeah, you're right. We actually just got a puppy too, so I can fully understand what you're talking about there. Like if she doesn't run, man, it is she's biting everything, getting into
Yeah.
everything, trying to bite at my heels, and I'm like, nope, we're done
Yeah.
with this. Uh,
No, yeah.
Let me ask you about that. Like that's the workout side of it. What about the eating side of it? Like how did you address some of that with your kids? Because I think there's two sides. Because we don't want to come across as like, what's the word? I don't know. Like everything in the world's horrible, but at the same
Right.
time, I also think the food pyramid is kind of not what we should be going after either. It would seem that there's other things that are more important, and trying to get our kids to see that. And even though they're being taught different things than what we're trying to teach them as parents, it just how have you dealt with some of that?
That part's really hard, to be honest. And
Yeah.
I find for kids, right? So, um, I like to, if you don't know who Dr. Daniel Amen is, I really like him a lot. He wrote a New York Times bestselling book called Change Your Brain, Change Your Life. And
Yeah. Yeah.
he's written several other books. And, he's got two daughters. And the one thing that he's always said is, I refuse to buy food that will harm you.
Mm,
And I'm not that good at that, right? Like, so I'll go through the
yeah.
McDonald's drive through every now and again. And, we'll eat some Jimmy John's every now and again. And there's mac and cheese in this house and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And just like, and there's a part of me that I feel very guilty allowing my kids to have, foods that I would never even touch. Like my kids
Yeah.
always are just like, why don't you ever get anything at McDonald's? I was like, because I don't eat garbage. Like you will never see me eat
Yeah.
McDonald's. I actually, funny thing was,
Mm,
I have a beard now, and I never used
mhm.
to, because last November my 17-year-old dared me to, because, and the other thing too is my wife loves me clean shaven. She's like, I just love to kiss you when you clean shaven. When you have a beard, oh my god, it kills my face. And so I was just like, okay, well, I'd rather kiss you passionately than have facial hair. And so my son came to me last year. He's like, hey, it's No Shave November coming up. And I was like, yeah. And he goes, you should grow a beard. You've never grown a beard. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I was like, he's like, well, you should do it. He's like, I think we should actually make a bet on it. Like, no cutting your beard and no cutting your hair for, November and December. And I was like, okay. I was like, this sounds like a bet. He's like, it is. I was like, well, what if I lose? And he's like, what if you shave your face or get your hair cut? I'm like, yeah. He goes, then you have to eat whatever McDonald's I put in front of you. I was like, well, this is a no brainer. I'm gonna win. I was like, there's
Yeah.
no way I'm gonna cave. I ain't eating that crap. I was like, so when I win, here's what I want. He's like, great, okay. And I was like, you know, this girl in your biology class you can't shut up about and you're too afraid to talk to her. I was like, on January 1st, after I win this bet, you're asking her out. And he's like,
Nice.
I'll take that bet. And I won. I was like, I'm not eating that. I was like, I won't be out of the bathroom for like 3 days. But anyway, going back to your question, like, I think it's really important to, you know, not necessarily identify food as good or bad. Like
Hmm.
I actually have a minor in nutrition and a
Okay.
degree in sports medicine.
Sure.
So I'm really, the psychology of food is like, food is not necessarily bad nor good. It's just there are better options and nutrient dense options that are better. So like I'm a big proponent in like, hey, if you want this, then maybe let's upgrade it a little bit, right? So like for instance, when my kids want pancakes, right? I'm like, well, what if we do protein pancakes with some dairy-free chocolate chips in it, and we do a sugar-free syrup in there, right?
Hmm.
And I make sure that I cook it in the right oils, you know, like the high heat oils, like so for instance, like avocado oil and that kind of thing.
Sure.
And they're like, yeah, great. Instead of giving them like the sugar bombs, right? Like we give
Yeah.
them, if they want donuts, we have donuts, but we go and buy like these vegan donuts, right? That are lower in sugar and don't have all the crap in it. They have like 4 ingredients in it.
Sure.
So like things like that, you know, I'm a big proponent of like whatever it is that you want. I'm sure we could upgrade it. We still
Hmm.
allow them to have, you know, food that I wouldn't necessarily eat either. But at the same time, like I think it's really important to be the example because my two older ones, they're in this season now where they eat healthy. You know, I mean, they still eat some things that are not the healthiest, but
Hmm.
they've watched their mom and I eat, you know, nutrient dense. Like when you see my dinner bowl, like I eat very similar things almost every single night, but it is a variety of colors and vegetables, like fresh
Hmm.
vegetables, microgreens, broccoli sprouts. You know, I'll do like a clean carbohydrate in there, like butternut squash or sweet potato, and then I'll do like a really good protein. A lot of times it's a plant-based protein. My body does really well with plant-based food,
Hmm.
and just things like that. And they'll look at that and be like, "Why are you eating that?" I was like, "Because I feel awesome after I eat it." I
Hmm.
was like, if I ate that, like I'd feel terrible. Like I would be
Hmm.
weighed down, brain fog. I'd probably be moody. Like I wouldn't feel good. Like
Yeah.
so, I just try to be the example and leave these breadcrumbs behind.
Mm.
And sooner or later, what I've noticed with my older two is they start to really buy into that. You know, like they're doing
Mm.
protein smoothie. You know, they're making their smoothies now. They're doing their green drinks and stuff like that, which I think is really cool.
Nice. Yeah. I like that leading by example. I think they pick up on far more than what we could ever think they are. And even if we aren't, maybe we are doing it intentionally, but maybe we're not. They're still picking up on it. And I think it's just I've noticed some with my oldest. She's 14, and will be 14 here soon. But my younger one, my youngest is 3, so we got 4. So there's a big gap there. But I think they're starting to see that there's some changes. Mom and dad are doing things a little different, and I have been for the last few years, but I think they're starting to see it. And I think that's really a good word to guys out there who are trying to make some changes is lead by example. And I think that's clearly what you're saying. But I see on the back behind you, the Dad Edge Alliance. What's your social media? What's your goals? What's your mission here with your content?
Yeah. So the mission is to give men strategy and not just conversations, but strategies and skills that they can elevate their relationships under their own roof. So the connection with their wife, their kids, even themselves, right? So we can
Hmm.
be a better leader. We can be a better husband. We can be a more effective father. We can be more calm. We can be more patient. The Dad Edge Alliance, that is our mastermind. So that's our group coaching environment for our guys. We've been doing that since 2016.
Cool.
Um, it's an incredible platform. We have almost 1,000 men who do life with us on the daily. We've got
It's awesome.
52 opportunities for men to dive into group coaching per week. So we've got 52 different call teams. And every single month, we're teaching these men skills within these areas. So, like for instance, right now we're doing men's health, right?
Hmm.
Physical, mental, emotional, spiritual health, right? That's what we're focusing on in the month of September. And every single week we take one of those and we put everything into a PDF and we put it into a skill form. So like if we want to elevate a man's mental health, we teach them the skills to actually do those things, right? And then they're held accountable to go out and take action, and we give them the community that's going to hold them accountable to do these things. So that's what we do every single month. We just vary up the content. Sometimes it's marriage content, sometimes it's leadership, sometimes it's parenting, sometimes it's even being, how do I play better with my kids, right? Things like that. Sometimes it's financial mastery. It just depends, but that's what we've been doing. As far as our goal, that is our goal. I truly believe that if you change one man's, mind, his heart, and his perspective, then you're going to change the way he connects with his wife and kids. Like we've said this time and time again, but if you show me a pretty fit guy, I'll probably show you that he's got a pretty good connection with his wife. If you see a guy who's pretty darn good in the workplace, chances are he's probably got a pretty decent relationship with his wife. It doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen some of the time. But what I'll tell you is that when a man feels fulfilled at home, like he's created an incredible bond and connection with his wife, that is like a domino effect that a lot of other dominoes will fall because of that. He'll become a better producer in the workplace. He'll become more physically fit. He'll become a more patient father. Like all of these things actually happen. Same thing when we have a great connection with our kids, right? It gives us confidence and validation. It's like, holy crap, I'm really moving the needle on my house. So what else can I do, right? And it trickles into everything else that we do. But I'm a big, huge believer in that if you change one man's life and family, you change a community. If you change a community, you change the city. If you change the city, you change the state, and so on and so forth, state, country, world, right? Here's what I'll tell you that I think is kind of wrong or broken. You mentioned the term social media. I put content out there. I would say about 90% of people that follow me, it's love, it's compliments, it's this and that. And then there's 10% that are haters, right? Like, listen, I have very strong political views, but I keep those to myself. And there's a reason for that. There's enough, like, I'm not like, I understand some things that are wrong and broken and some things I'd love to see in the world, but I can fight that fight all day long. Right. But if I don't have a good connection with my family, like no offense, but who cares what side of the fence I stand on? I'm a big proponent in the most important battle that a man faces is under his own roof. In other words, and I don't mean to say like you got to fight with people. It's actually the opposite. It's the battle for the mind and the hearts of that relationship that is so important. Once that is secured, right? Once that's good, then go out and fight all these other battles that we have, right? It's not the other way around. I see so many people fighting over social media, over politics, religion, the pride movement, all this other stuff. And I'm like, and you just see people, fighting back and forth, and you're like, how are things at home for you? Right? If that's not tightened up and if that's a disaster, then why are you fighting this fight out here? Go get that done first. That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah. No, I am right there with you as well. And I a word keeps popping in my head, and that word is intentional, and being more intentional with these areas that you're talking about with your family, with your wife, with these, with how you're mentoring and coaching other men, and you're striving to help them be intentional. So I'm sitting here thinking about guys listening, and I wonder if you'd give, maybe they're sitting there and they're saying, this sounds great. I want to be more intentional. I want to focus on these things. Where do I start? Like, what's a few things I could do to start? What would you tell them?
So first of all, I love that you started the question that I want to be more intentional. Basically, it's saying like, I want to be more present. I want to be better. I want more, right? Those are the adjectives that I hear. I'm like, hey, if you could wave a magic wand, like I'll give you an example. If I could, I'll ask a guy, if you could wave a magic wand and you could improve or elevate something in your marriage, what would it be? It's almost always communication, or it's connection, or whatever, right? And I'm like, well, okay, well, if you want to elevate communication, what does that look like? And they're like, well, I want better communication, or I want more communication, or I want intentional communication. And I'm like, okay, well, let's dissect this a little bit. I like to peel back the onion layers because this is where your approach and your perspective absolutely needs to change if you're going to change the conversations and the connection with your wife. So if I'm like, hey, I want more. Well, that's like me going to the doctor and him looking at my blood work, and he's like, all right, Larry, I need you to get more healthy. And you're like, well, what does that mean? Like, do I have high cholesterol? Do I have diabetes? Do I have a high PSA? Like, am I overweight? Do I need to, what's health, right? Do I have osteoporosis? No, don't worry about that. I just need you to be more intentional with your health and be better and be more healthy. And you walk out of there and you're like, that did not tell me a thing. Like,
No.
So you've got to be really dialed into what that looks like. So like, for instance, I always tell men, like, and this is kind of funny. I always want men to not just talk, but to take action. Right. So I'll be like, all right, well, here's what we're going to do. I was like, I want you to get your phone out, and they'll get their phone out. I was like, I want you to pull your wife's number up, and they'll be like, okay. And by the way, if you want to do this with your wife, please feel free. And I tell them, I was like, text your wife this question. What is something I currently do that makes you feel most loved? And they'll look at me and they'll be like, she's going to think I'm crazy. I'm like, well, if she's going to think you're crazy, it might be a really good test of where you're at in your relationship. Because if she thinks you're crazy, that means you haven't asked this kind of question in a really long time. And you're messing with, like, why are you asking me this? Is really weird. So, and they're like, well, what do you think she's going to say? I was like, I don't know. Give it a try. So they'll give it a try. Right. And sometimes, right, the women will come back with like this long drawn out, detailed, like, this is all the things that you do for me. Oh my gosh, it's so amazing. It makes me feel so loved. And the guy will read it and be like, oh my God, I had no idea. I'm like, that, my friend, is more presence, deeper connection, and more intentional. That's it right there. Right. And some guys will be like, she just asked us this. She'll be like, this is really random. Why are you asking me this? And they're like, what do I say to that? Like, I was really hoping for a better response. I was like, let me tell you, I was like, you need to be prepared that if you ask questions like this and you haven't done it for a while, you're going to get that response. And guess what? That's really okay. It's really okay. Because here's what's actually going on for your wife. She really likes it, but she's also like, why are you doing this? This is not the norm, right? It's kind of like if your grandmother came up to you, like your 80-year-old grandmother who has a walker, and she's so sweet and wonderful and all this. And she's like, hey, I just signed up for my first ultra marathon. It's in 6 months and I start training tomorrow. Aren't you happy for me? And you're just like, your grandma, you don't run ultra marathons. You have a walker. Like, why would you do this? She's like, yeah, but I'm so excited. And you're like, no, you don't do. So basically our wives put us in this level of certainty of like, this is how I know you operate, and you don't really deviate outside of this. And if you think it's crazy, like, think of your kids. You have 4 kids. I have 4 kids. I have a 15-year-old who is a savage at football, right? An absolute savage. He's the starting center. He's also a linebacker. He's also the long snapper. And this is what he's done since the 3rd grade. If he came to me and said, hey, Dad, I've got great news. I'm going to quit football and I want to start learning how to play the pan flute, and I want to be in band. I'd be like, what are you talking about? Who are you?
With you?
Because that's the psychology. And I think men need to really know that when you start asking these deeper questions and start communicating better, your wife is going to get a little suspect on you, but that's okay. Here's what I always tell men. I was like, here's how you respond to that. I know it's random. It's totally random. And you probably think I have lost my mind, but here's the real truth. I haven't asked you questions like this in so long. And to be quite honest, I want a deeper connection with you because I love you so much and I really want to know. So what is something I currently do that makes you feel most loved? So I always tell guys, own the hell out of it, right? Let her know that you're self-aware that this is not the norm, and then restate the question all over again, because that's going to give her clarity of like, oh, and then she'll tell you. But that's where if you really want to know, you're back to your question, like, where do I start? We have a free training that I'd love to give and it's totally free. I don't want to think from your audience, but it's called 25 Intimate Conversation Starters. Basically what it's called is generative questions, but it's a 20-minute training, video training. And then I give you a PDF on 25 questions you can literally start using with your wife, kind of like what we just did just now. And the quality of our questions will determine the quality of the relationship. So if you're asking your wife, how was your day? It's a default question that doesn't give you any connection whatsoever. She'll give you a default question that doesn't require her to like dig into some of the things that are good for her. She'll find good, busy, crazy, boring, right? That's what she'll tell you. But yet we think those are the needle movers. The needle movers are, tell me something I currently do that makes you feel most loved. Another needle mover is you can go back to the past. Tell me about a time in our relationship where you felt incredibly connected to me. What were we doing and why did you pick that moment?
Mm,
What you're doing with those questions is you're triggering an emotional response with a thought process where they're reliving the things that were going on or that you're currently doing, right? I also
hmm
love, and I'll shut up after this, but I also love these future
Good.
cast questions, right? Generative questions, because they're the best of the past, the best of the current, and what could be. You could say, hey, if you could wave a magic wand and we were celebrating New Year's Eve on December 31st, 2023, and we held up our glasses and we toasted to an amazing relationship and the connections we made, what would you be telling me we've done that hasn't happened yet? And we still have 3 months left in the year, right? And your wife is
hmm
suddenly like, oh my gosh. And she's imagining all these things connecting with you.
hmm
And she's like, well, this is what would be happening. And these are the things we would have done. And then all you really have to do is reflect back and then go do those things. And that is more intentional. That is better
hmm
connection. That is psychological safety. That is the communication that guys desperately want. They just have to be reminded. You've got to get really creative with these questions and you have to know how to. The other thing too is you can't just be great at questions. You have to have conversational excellence skills, right? We teach 10 of them in the data edge. And generative questions is just one of them, but that will at least get you started.
Yeah, man, that's really good. I'm very interested in more of that, and I think a lot of guys will be too. I think every guy's really honest with themselves. They do want things to get better, whether they're willing to admit it or not. And I think we're in a culture now that just says if it doesn't work, move on, and you don't need to put in any work. And I think I'm thankful there's guys like you who are saying, yeah, that's not good enough. That's not what we are called to do as men. And if we put in the work, if we are more intentional, if we are present, I like that term, that psychological safety that you used there. That was really good. And I think it will open up a lot of guys' eyes that uh, things can get better if you are willing to put in the work to do it. And I think that is one thing that I try to emphasize, and I see that you're emphasizing. I know other guys are emphasizing that good results require a lot of hard work, and that has been through the test of time. I mean, your kids play football. If you want to get better, they've got to put in the work. And if we want to change how we're eating, we got to put in the work and not buy junk anymore, whatever. If we want to learn how to lift better, lift heavier, whatever it may be, then you put in the work. You start doing more reps. You start studying. You start researching. You do all these things for things that you enjoy. Now, let's apply those same principles to our wife, to our family, to our kids, and beyond, our profession at some point as well. But I think the family, like you have mentioned, the wife, the kids, the family, that takes first precedence,
Yeah.
right? I like
I
that.
think it actually starts with us first and then the wife and then the kids, right? Because
Yeah,
if we're not focused, exactly what you're talking
sure.
about, right? If we're not focused on our own skills and learning, that's different. I love the fact that you even you brought up like football, right? So many couples, and let's just take marriage again. So many couples are waiting for the feeling of love, and it's just like, oh, it's just not there anymore. And
hmm
that's like sitting on the bench or not showing up to practice and being like, I just can't wait to get the feeling of being able to tackle somebody better. And you're like, you ain't going to tackle anybody better unless you're out there practicing and getting the reps in, right? It
hmm
starts with your stance. It starts with the explosive movement right off the line, right? It starts with making sure your hands are where they're supposed to be, right?
hmm
It starts with like, being able to run and juke and all this other stuff. And you are not going to get any better at that unless you are learning, right?
hmm
And this, quite frankly, is no different. And the really odd thing is that we wait or we just feel like the feeling of love is going to come over. What I'll tell you is that the news flash that I love to tell men is love is actually a verb. It's a
hmm
feeling too, but it's a verb. So like you've got to take the action first, and then you'll feel even a more enhanced feeling of love. And I'll give you an example. I've been with my wife. I've known her for 27 years. I've been married to her for 20 years. We've got a more connected marriage, more intimate connection at 20 years than we did at 15. We had a better one at 15 than we did at 10. And that is because we both agree that love is a verb. It requires work, right? So like, for instance, I'm not going to sit there and wait around and be like, I just don't know if I feel the feeling of love anymore. Now, that statement is completely false, by the way. I'll say that real quick. But like that's where a
Mm-hmm.
lot of couples get into. It's like, well, wait a second. If I want to feel the feeling, if I want to enhance my feeling of love and connection with her, well, then I've got to do something about that. So, in other words, I know for a fact that one of the things my wife loves, because I've asked her all these generative questions, she's like, "Oh my gosh, when you leave me a post-it note on my mirror, oh, my heart just melts. I feel so loved." And you're very specific with a compliment or whatever it is. Like when I'm writing, like, "Hey, I just want to let you know, I think you look amazing lately. I know you've really been trying to, you know, get your health in a better spot, and I know you've lost weight, and you just look amazing. And I just think it's awesome. Keep up the good work. I love you so much. You're such an inspiration to me." And I'll stick that on her mirror. Well,
Mm-hmm.
suddenly, me just doing that action, I feel more love for her because I'm reflecting upon some of the things that I most honor, acknowledge, and appreciate about her. The other cool thing is this: is that when she receives that love, it's that law of reciprocity. Because when she reads that, she's like, oh, she'll come up to me, she'll hug me, she'll kiss me. She's like, "Oh my God, thank you so much." And then
Mm-hmm.
I get that feeling of love because she's being, it's the law of reciprocity, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I don't, here's the other thing too, though. This is where it's dangerous. And I want to give like a black label warning here, right? I do not write her a post-it note with the expectation that I will get, right?
Mm-hmm.
Get
Yeah,
laid, get
that's good.
affection, get whatever, right?
That's good.
I do those things because I'm her man, because I love her, and because that's my job and that's my role
Mm-hmm.
is to do those things. So I do it. I'm like, well, if she appreciates it, even if I get a text that says thank you, I don't care. The fact that I'm doing it without expectation and agenda, I'm simply doing it to appreciate and honor her and love her because I feel that feeling of love when I take action too, right? It doesn't have
Mm-hmm.
to just necessarily be this reciprocity.
Yeah, yeah, that's really good. I think that's something to keep. I think it's kind of countercultural too to think that way because we're taught from a young age to want, and it's all about me, 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 me. And so when we do something and without the intention of wanting something in return, it's totally countercultural to what we've been taught our whole lives for the most part. And I think for guys to really show the type of love that is a verb, that is action, we have to come to that mindset. And I don't think it'll happen overnight by any means, but it is kind of transforming how we think about these things, and especially that word love. And I think it's very important. The word you're saying is super important, super helpful. And I wonder if guys want to know more about that. Where's the best place they can find you? They want
Yeah.
coaching.
So
Where's the best place they can find you?
Yeah, so for coaching, that's super easy. Just go to
Okay.
thedatedge.com/alliance. That's our group coaching environment. But if you're not ready for that yet, and here's what I'll tell you, just kind of some tough love. It sounds self-serving, but it's not. The fastest way to get these things right is to be around other like-minded men who are learning these things with you, experiential learning, right? So
Mm-hmm.
invest in yourself, right? Invest in you. Most people, our mastermind is $100 a month, right? So it's like, it's $1,200 a month or $1,200 a year. The thing that's fascinating to me is like, how much of a priority is your marriage and your family? We will run out and we won't even blink twice at spending $900 to $1,300 on the new iPhone. The iPhone
Mm-hmm.
15 is coming out. Like, I need that, but you
Mm-hmm.
won't spend time, energy, and resources on your family. And that's where I love men who come and do life with us because we know their priorities are right. So if you're ready for that, that's there. If you're more like, hey, let me try one of these strategies first. Like, let me see what this is all about. Go to thedatedge.com/25 questions. Sign up for that. It doesn't sell you a thing. It's going to give you access to a video training that's about 20 minutes. It gives you the psychology of why these generative questions improve your intimacy level and connection with your wife so much. And then to go out and do them and how to do them. And I give you that PDF of the 25 questions. And then you're going to get a
Okay.
series of emails. I know I said I don't want anything from you, but here's what I do want from you. You're going to get a series of emails of me checking in on you, like, hey, how is this going? Like, have you done this? Have you asked these questions? If so, what's it been like? Hit the reply button, because a lot of people think that those emails go to like some random VA like in the Philippines. They come to me. And
Mm-hmm.
I can't even tell you how many times men have hit the reply button and been like, oh my gosh, I did this, this, and this. This is what happened. And I reply to every single one of those emails because I love
It's
hearing these
awesome.
stories of success. Like, I've had guys tell me, I asked my wife, what is something I currently do that makes you feel most loved? And her eyes well up with tears. Like she's just like, oh my God, like that's such a great question. It's almost like
Mm-hmm.
they've been dying for us to lead them in that way. So
Sure.
two great spots, the dadedge.com/alliance if you want group coaching. And then if you want to try something like a free resource, go to the dadedge.com/25 questions.
Awesome. Yeah. I'll include those in the description as well. Larry, I want to tell you, I've really enjoyed this.
Me
You've
too.
challenged me on some things that I need to go do after we're done here, and send a few text messages myself. And I, hey,
Yeah.
once you have uh, a lot of kids, once you get into it, I think it's not that you don't want to continue doing some of these things like sending, checking, being intentional. I think life gets busy, and unless you prioritize it, unless you make it the priority of what you're going to do for yourself, for your wife, for your kids, things just kind of coast. And I, for one, don't want to be a person who coasts. And I think there's a lot of guys who are listening who don't want to coast anymore, and they want to be more intentional. And I really appreciate what you've said today, because I think it will help them get out of that rut, if you will, and it gives them a path forward. It gives them something or a resource to begin making changes in their lives. So I appreciate that. I do.
I'm glad it was helpful for you.
Yeah, definitely. I end every podcast with giving my guest the opportunity to give the guys listening a challenge for the week. It could be for this week, it could be for a month, it could be something to challenge them that is very pointed, very particular, that they can focus on in their life. And you've kind of already done some of this already, but what's a challenge that you would give the guys for this coming week?
I would say, do you want me? So a challenge?
Yeah.
I would say a challenge would be just go out and ask your wife, like, what's something you currently do that makes you feel most loved? I mean, I think that.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
then if she looks at you like you have two heads, like, that's really okay. Right. That's
Yeah.
really okay. And just own it. Right. Just own it and repeat the question. Another great thing to do is ask your kids the same question. Like, the
Mm-hmm.
needs of your wife, there's three needs of our wives, and that is to feel seen, heard, and safe. Okay. Your kids have the exact same needs. Doesn't matter if they're a girl or boy, seen, heard, and safe. So these questions really elicit those conversations that allow you to do that. So, does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, I like that. Yeah. I think those will be some very telling responses from all those kids. But that's a good thing. We need to hear these things. We need to be challenged and to do better as men. And I think that's what we are called to do. So I appreciate
Agreed.
it, Larry. I really do.
Thank you. Back at you.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for coming on. And for my listeners, I appreciate you joining us. Go like, subscribe, do all those cool things that are help the show out. And I challenge you to go and be a better man this week.